Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome home. Welcome aboard. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your sensei, Al Bob. I'm your griot here to tell you a story. Um, Today's title is Little Things. The little things are really what matter, right? Um, I woo woo sensei Al Bob. Woo-hoo. And again, I invite you to talk to me on my email, which is the dude awake 42 at Gmail, right? All small, lowercase, all one thing. And I really thank everyone who sends me things through PayPal. PayPal is getting very strange. And luckily, people only send me like $5 here and a few dollars there. And it's, you know, and PayPal is like not making it easy for me to put it in. They want me to buy cryptocurrency or put it in their piggy bank. How can I spend it? I have it hooked up to transfer to my bank, and they don't want to do that. And they keep putting different PayPal is like. So pretty much the little thing out of that is we have to make our own platform. So any of you out there that can write code, maybe it's time for us to at least have a website. And like I said, I wanted to bring the world community together on the internet. And I kind of do that because everybody is from, I got people from everywhere, right? So Miss Michelle, where are you from? What neck of the woods? So there are a lot of people from, Tasmania and Australia and a bunch from South America and England and rest of Europe. Canada. You should come on down. We're about to hit winter, so and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do. The guy who I sold my school to in Virginia, he's begging me to come back. And it would be, I mean, when he and I do things on the internet, Ontario, I love Ontario. I used to live in Toronto, right? And I love, and Ontario is a great capital city, right? You're at that, no, what's your capital? Not Ontario. But anyway, I like Canada. It's like any other country. I've lived all around the world. The people are great. The government's not so much. Canada has issues, and it keeps a lot of stuff down low. Everyone thinks they're like just toot heads and hey, and they're not. Okay, so um, and it's great. I'm a city boy. I grew up in New York. New York was my town. The first place I was a dude was New York. I was the disco dude. I built discos and took care of them. Disco daddy, right? So little things. What are the little things? Little things are things like saying thank you and please, right? And being in a loving state, the best you can be. Even when things are annoying or terrible, you can be in a loving state, right? And when people, I used to do guided meditations, and maybe we'll get back to it. If I work out with John and I can stay there. He's got great internet, right? give access so I could do live guided meditations. Not you could communicate through the live chat while you were in state and ask me questions. What's this? I'm eating my breakfast and lunch and dinner all at the same time. All right. Hmm. So, um, here we are, 6 minutes into it. Oh, there's somebody back. So, Michelle, if you're there, that's Michelle, right? Or is it? It's not Mitchell. See, those are the little things I get in my way sometimes. Um, uh, there's a woman here. She's a regular like me. She takes their propaganda list. What's on sale? And she turns them into origami things, little boats and all kinds of little animals, and she leaves them all over the all over the store. So it's a nice thing. And that's a little thing she does, right? And I kind of go around after she's made a whole bunch of them. Moves them on the table. I go around and give them to people, and they're like shocked. I'm giving them something. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Just waiting for the crew to show up. Let's see, a story about little things. Now, any of you seen the movie? Hey, Val, good to see you, buddy. Val, did you ever see the movie um, Doctor Strange? And you said you were, so I was brought up a Roman Catholic, and I had a godfather who was a cardinal, right? And he really wanted me to be a rocket scientist for the Pope. Because the Catholic Church basically owns science. Yeah? First by threatening people like Galileo, Copernicus, and Newton, and other people who had a really good idea what was going on. I mean, every time something pops up, like the Vatican a few years ago said, "Oh, of course there are people on other planets, and of course they believe in God, and of course there are, oh, they're always thinking about the bank." Right? So, Val, what I would love to hear from you, okay, what I'd really like to hear from you, Val, is tell me about the little things in your life that bring you closer to Christ. Okay? Like I was saying earlier, this lady comes and sits here and makes these little origami paper things, right? And she just leaves them on the table. And I go out and give them to people in the store. And 90% of those people go, "Oh, wow, It like makes their day. That little thing. And that little thing brings me to Christ. Because anytime I can make someone happy, and I would read people's palms, right? Honestly, it's, it's different than other forms of what is known as divination, right? Figuring out what's going on. That's all divination is. Right? It's not from the devil. Now, Catholic Vatican would want you to think that's all. Oh my God, because they don't want you to know stuff. Yeah. So we all have hands, and we all have see all those lines. We all have minds. And see, I read the hand people write with because energetically all this power goes into them. Yeah, little things. Yep, the little things. But they really matter more. You look at the New Testament, what Jesus was talking about. He's always talking about the little things, not the big things. And he also, you know, he never uses the word soul. Well, soul is like a noun that represents real estate, and that's what the Catholic Church was trying to buy and sell. They wanted to make heaven into a gated community. Oh, the Golden Gates, we got to go in here. Whereas Jesus was talking about we're all brothers and sisters, and he included the animals and the plants, all our relations. And first people, they always talk about little things, not big things. Their stories are all about the little stuff, right? And so, and I'm sitting right now in a town called Boone, North Carolina. It's about 30 miles from my front door. Closest place I can comfortably do this, get a little something to eat, drink, and sit here. And no one ever comes in this little corner. So they have good Wi-Fi. But it's my newest best place. But and it gives me a window. It's like a theater. That's the fourth wall over there. To look out amongst the boat to see what they're up to, and then to have a conversation with you folks. Let's see. Thank you, Ellie. Bless you too, and bless you all for coming to. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Bob the Griot. And if you've got, you know, this isn't for children or people with childish minds. Now, being innocent like a child, I am totally naive. I believe everything that people tell me. But I can read them like the book and I check up on it. So I don't jump on the bandwagon until I verify, right? So, but I give everyone the shadow of a doubt. I never judge anybody because I'm not here to judge. Right? And they might just be having a bad day. So I'm not going to judge anybody. Right? The only person I'm here to judge is myself. And it's not judgment, it's introspection. I kind of go in and say, how did I do on that? Okay, do this better, work on that. And that's where we all need to go. Is not to judge others and not to judge ourselves either, but to be introspective. There's a judgment is like it's like black or white. This is what it is. Introspecting is looking at what happened and trying to see so you can navigate the situation, right? Not to judge yourself, right? Because you never want to really get in an outward spiral. That comes with self-doubt, self-loathing, and when you are picking on yourself that hard, it's real easy to pick on other people. Just for escape. So that's the bottom line about. So anyway, what what are the little things that make you happy? That's what we're talking about. Little things that matter. Right? So I'm going to tell you a story about little things that matter. So, growing up in New York, my grandma up in Harlem, my folks up Park Avenue. It was like, and they had a house in Long Island. People laughed at them. I like to make people smile and laugh. That's why I tell stories. Hmm. So this place is an expensive place, but the lunches are actually cheaper than McDonald's and better. So they have these chicken little things. I've been eating them, throwing them in my soup. And for some reason, this one nugget is in my mouth. That's the best nugget of all of them. Just really wow. Cooked just right, tastes great. That's a little thing that makes you happy. But making people laugh is so. What do you do to make people laugh? A lot of people just look at me and laugh. You know, but so I'm telling you a story, right? So the story is it's about 1972, and I've done all the. I'm still working, kind of for the VA. Um, I went. I kind of tried to hide from my draft board, and I just missed the lottery. A little bit too old, and so when I finally went to see, and I break in it was, didn't burn my draft card. I just moved around a lot, so they never could catch up to me. Once they did, I went down to Whitehall, and I was expecting to get online in my underpants. And when I went to the guy at the front door of the desk, gave him my little letter, he said, "Oh, you're on this list over here. You need to go to the third floor, see Sergeant so and so." Went to third floor for Sergeant so and so, and he goes, "Oh, we've been looking you for a long time. Boy, you're hard to find." I said, "Okay, here I am." And he goes, Al, and he pulls out this big file on me, like, boom. He goes, we don't think we can trust you with a gun. I'm making people laugh. I started like just howling. And I said, "You're right. Can't trust me with a gun." He goes, "So how would you like to do alternative service?" And I, for the last 4 years, tried to do everything to get into alternative service. And here they are offering it to me. And I say, "Fine, great, sure, sign me up." So I did. And first thing, I kind of just tried to see where I would fit, whether I go into Vista. And I went into Vista, and I started working in schools, and they were like, "You're a bit too much for our institutional, what we want to teach these kids. You're trying to make them think." And okay, how about the VA? So I went over to the VA, Fort Hamilton in Brooklyn, and it's just a bedpan guy. And I would show up. A friend of mine had a motorcycle. He owed me money, so you can drive my motorcycle. I'm leaving town, so I drove this motorcycle around. And it was okay, especially if I drove around when there was no traffic. When there was traffic, yeah, didn't like it. So, but I used to go to work at 10 in the morning, and I would, depending on what couch I slept on, I would drive from that point. But by that time, traffic was, you could deal with it. And I would go over the bridge and go down the FDR Drive, down the PQE to Port Hamilton, Bedpan, right? I was there for a few weeks, and the head guy, Colonel, he's like 90 years old. And they're still getting lots of guys from Vietnam. And Vietnam War really wasn't over for us until like 82. Because we were in Cambodia, we were over here, we're over there. So anyway, And that war was mostly about tourism, oil, and poppy. That was what it was about. And also making a lot of money for Defense Department guys. I was just looking at, I like to, not like, but I'm enthralled by that kind of technology, especially Air Force. Because my dad was colonel in the Air Force, got to sit in B-52s and B-58 hustlers and, go down in Minuteman silos. And, I got interested. And that, I was being primed to be, rocket scientist for the Pope. I saw an above ground nuclear explosion in Nevada when I was 6. Anyway, so I'm there at the VA, and I would say one of the real things I try to give my time listening to people, right? Interact, allow people to vent. Yep, that's what I am. And worries without condemnation. Exactly that. Perfect. If we all did that, we all do what Val does, we would be in good shape. The planet would be in good shape, especially if more people were, uh, banging on metal rather than at a factory, making things by hand like Val does, right? He's a blacksmith. People laughing, doing facial expressions. Yeah. Well, my face is like, I don't even have to try to make facial expressions. They're there. But anyway, so now I'm working at the VA, and the head guy comes and goes, Al, you're going to be my protege. And I go, what? And he's a surgeon. I said, you're a surgeon. He goes, no, you don't understand. I've been watching you, and you are amazing with people. You don't like cringe from the people. I mean, I saw you the other day with this guy who got hit by napalm, and he had no legs, no arms, and he was like, he was burnt like a crispy critter. I mean, his skin was like, and I didn't even blink, I said, buddy, I'm reading your chart here, and it says your skin needs to be hydrated, and you're supposed to. And I said, I got this stuff right here, and I had this really amazing aloe thing, golden seal, and a few other things in it that a friend of mine who was a real good herbalist, she had made. And she had made me like a tub of this stuff because working as an electrician, your hands always get banged up and cut, and you're out in the cold. So I had a big tub of this stuff, so I brought, after reading his chart one day, a day or so later, I came by with a big thing of this and said, listen, no one's even doing this. He says you're supposed to, so I'm going to just put this on. And he was like, oh. And he went to sleep. Right? And the nurse came over and said, did you make him go to sleep? And I said, well, I had him breathe, and I put this stuff on him. She goes, what is this stuff? And I told her what was in it. And I said, why don't you take that home and use it on yourself? You could use some hydration. She laughed. And, she did. Came back, can I have more of that stuff? I said, yeah, I can. I still have a tub. I don't want to give it all to you. But yeah, next you use that up and I have another one up. So I started doing that to all of the burn guys, especially. And that's when the head guy saw me doing this. I mean, it wasn't in my job description. And the fact that I talked to everybody and listened to their story and try to, say, well, maybe we did this, So he sent me off to school. And the first place I went was to up in Putney, Vermont, to live with a Japanese Shinto priest. And he's a guy who really, taught me Tai Chi, Qigong, Jiu-Jitsu, and how to really meditate. I mean, really, go into state, put out my, go into my 6 and above senses, And, that's what I've been trying to teach everyone, at least the last 40 years. And that's what I would use when I was in corporate or scholarly environments where I wouldn't laugh, wouldn't, go anywhere other than trying to, my 3 rules, Dr. Do no harm, don't get involved unless you have a workable exit strategy and you're going in to save the innocent. Don't go in. The third one, don't get involved because it's not about you. Only if you have something to learn that can help others. Those are my 3 rules. So we all need three rules. Figure out what they are, um, and it's kind of how it is. So it's. Uh, uh, so a lot of people ask me about magic and astrology and divination and all those things, and they're all tools. They aren't the end all. And other people are going on about I have a lot to learn. Only, if you're alive, you've still got a lot to learn. There is no, oh, here's the line. If I get to that, I've done it. No, it's like this life has been given to us to be one big, kindergarten. This is a, sandbox that we're here to play and be nice. The lunch crowd is moved in, right? This is kind of, I don't know if you ever saw what was it called? This lady was like the kindergarten teacher, and you'd have your lunch with her, and you're a good bee, right? And she'd look through this thing and see you, and if it was your birthday, and she'd talk to you about you on TV, about, oh, Johnny's out there, Al Bob is out there, it's his birthday, and your mother had sent in all the information, and they would talk about you to the world on television. So it was at lunchtime, so you sat there and had lunch with whatever her name was. Romper room, maybe? So,
Guess what? The house is messed up. So, that's the owner. They were moving in furniture right then.
Bean soup, yum yum. So, divination is just like to divine, to understand, right? And so, again, here's your hand, right? So you got to look at the whole hand, right? And I just look at a few things. First, the opening here. First, I look at a person's hand that they write with. Because all that energy, writing stuff goes into your hand. Exactly. And as Plato said, was a wise man who's guided by the stars, a fool who is led by them, right? So any of this stuff is a great heads up, but it's not the be and end all. I have loads of friends who are really great divinators, and they all go, oh, you should do this in your career. You're better than and teach this, blah, blah, blah. And, so I've had mystery schools, and people come to them, and all they want is to, give me some money, so I give them a certificate that says they're a shaman or a magician. And no, it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. It's like an ongoing thing, right? So all I am is a griot, right? A guy who tells you stories. So anyway, here's your hand, right? So first thing to look at, see this opening? The more this is open is how honest you are. So if someone's like that, they're pretty close to the best. And that's where that term comes from. You're so close, there's no light in there to see, right? But what is that? See these two fingers? It's interesting to try to, these two fingers, right? See how one's a little shorter than the other. That means I'm a little passive aggressive. Now, the more that finger would be like, without getting into the up, but so I'm almost equal, but not really. I have a little passive aggressive, and it kind of goes lots of different ways, but so that's it, right? So other thing is, see this lifeline here. This is your lifeline usually goes this way. Your lifeline goes that way. And mine is like one line. And what that means is I think with my heart and feel with my head. And if you can do that, that is a mark. Whenever I see that, oh, you're a fellow Aquarian. That's Aquarians. Aquarians think with their heart and feel with their head. So when someone says something mean to them, instead of getting all emotional, they basically go, why did that happen? Right? So they're thoughtful, right, about their emotions. And my first wife, she used to get really upset because she used to like to have big fights and then have wild, crazy sex. And I said, honey, why don't we just cut up the fights and just have wild, crazy sex? I'm up for that. And I got her into that, and she was okay with it. But at certain points, she would get upset that I would always try to analyze and figure out and negotiate. And she goes, listen, I said, listen, I'll do anything you want. We don't have to argue. Tell me what you want, and or tell me how you feel, and I'm there. And somehow she thought I wasn't caring enough if I didn't want to fight. I mean, she understood who. After 8 years, she definitely understood. And she would always say, like, there's certain things I want out of you, and I had to like resign myself to saying, no, that's not going to happen. But you do so many other great things, more than anyone other than my father's ever done for me. I can say, okay, and so that's it. And we had a great connect. We had an art studio together called DNA, and we became relatively successful. Or we had our photos appeared everywhere. And she was an amazing. She was like the Albert Einstein of the darkroom, and she was a great photographer. She was like, the Cartier-Bresson of Leica, and. But DNA, that was me. I'm a photojournalist. I'm a guy who empathizes with the person I'm taking a picture of. And so that's what my pictures are all about, the we and me. So whenever we did a show, it was always DNA, not her or me, it was us. But you could tell right away whose picture was whose. And so we had a lot of shows. We were in a Whitney Annual. We had shows in lots of galleries because I knew all these people. It was not hard for me to get into a gallery since I built the thing, and most of those guys, the guy who owned 420 concept, the way you bend pipe, it's like sculpture. You should just stick some of that on plywood and I'll sell it. And I was like, no, sorry. Oh, yeah, how about my paintings? You want to sell those? And he did, but I didn't quite have that niche, right? But my photos sold pretty good. People like my photos. But in the 70s and 80s, photography, especially the 70s when we had DNA, people would pay $500 to $1,000 for a photo. But they said, listen, you can knock out a million of these. What's so special about this? I mean, we had limited editions, things like that. But now with the digital world, I could probably do pretty good, but I have a clue how to do it. So. And my father threw out most of my negative books. That was nice of him. But so there I was, working at the VA and sleeping on people's couches. And then I was sent up to Putney, Vermont, around end of August. And there were about 9 of us and 10 of us. And most of those people were like doctors, medical people. And this guy was going to show them something new that they could put in. They were all so full of. So me, I was like very respect. And we all showed up at this dilapidated, abandoned farm in Putney, outside of Putney, Vermont. And Sensei was just sitting on the front porch in this rickety chair, and we all showed up at that day, different times. And he said, "Hi, I'm Sensei." And so they were like, where, they were expecting a hotel, and this, nothing worked. Nobody had been in this building for, it was full of garbage, rats and raccoons. And I actually was one of the first people who showed up. This other young lady named Judy, and she was a nurse, and she was sent by her medical establishment. And she was a herbalist, and she was a Buddhist, and she was, already on that route. So they said, "Oh, we got some money to send you to go see this guy, so we're sending you to go see this guy." So anyway, she and I with Chris, we almost walked in. We took a cab there together. We got off the bus, and we're the only people who took a bus there. And she came from, but we got at Putney, the bus. I think we were on the same bus. Anyway, we got off, and I said, "Hi, you from Putney?" And she said, "No, I'm here to study with," and I finished the sentence, "Sensei." And she was, "Oh, you got him there too?" I said, "Yeah." And I said, "You got the address?" And she goes, "Yeah." I said, let's see if we can find a cab to take us there. We did. That's how we got there. So we showed up together, and there was nobody else there. And so we talked to him for a bit, and then I said, I'm an electrician. I build things. And Judy goes, "I'm pretty handy. My father was a builder, but he was a football coach, really. And so, a basketball coach, I think basketball coach." Anyway, so she and I said, "We're going to go take a look and see what works, what doesn't, what's going on, blah, blah, blah." And he said, "Okay, I appreciate that." So we went around and we walked into the house. Living room was a total disaster. We had smashed holes in walls. And there were 3 little bedrooms and 1 big bedroom at the back and there was a bathroom there. And they actually had water from a stream that actually worked. The toilet actually flushed. And so I said, "Oh, look at that. We got water. That's a big plus." And, it's still warm. And so then I started looking at the electrics, and, it's like ancient electrics, knob and tube. And went back to a fuse box, and there was a meter there. And, I did that. And, oh, look, there's electricity. And so that was another good sign. And the septic worked because I flushed the toilet a couple of times and it didn't overflow. And so I said, so this is a nice bedroom. Let's see if we can find a bed. And so we did. We put a bed. We cleaned that room out. Didn't really have too much stuff in it. We cleaned it what little stuff there was. There was a rug rolled up in the corner. We rolled it out on the floor. It was a really nice rug. We put that bed there, and we found a little table and a chair that was it was kind of a rocker chair. And then we kind of cleared the living room and the kitchen. They were over here, and there was 2 more bedrooms over here, and there's 2 more bedrooms upstairs. And the ones upstairs, the floor was pretty. The roof kind of leaked onto that floor and then drooled over to the wall, and it was like, disintegrating that wall of the whole house. So, but it didn't go downstairs, and the bedroom that we cleaned out was on the other side, so that was high and dry. And so we cleaned out the living room, the kitchen. And then we went into the barn. The barn was really nice, right? And it was actually, it had been a mechanic's place. So it actually had tools and a lathe and had a whole nother different electric service that was probably put in the 60s. And that was on too. Pretty amazing. It was on. And so there was an upstairs, a log for hay. But there's no hay, and it was totally dry, totally clean. And there's a bed and a rug rolled up. We rolled the rug out, and there was water and a toilet out there. And so we did all of that like in an hour. And we went into the kitchen, and there was some wood in the mud room, and so we put some wood in the wood stove. That was the cooking thing. It was a big stove, had 2 things and 4 things, and there was the back you took off and you put the wood in there and it heated the whole thing, and it put the heat out the top, and anyway, so it was something that could heat the whole place and could cook on. So and I got the water working in the kitchen, but that was more of a pumping thing. And so got that going and got it going until the water was nice and fresh. And it was a tea, thin boiled water, a really big thing. And Judy she goes, I have some teas in my pack. So she got her pack. And anyway, so by this time we were having a great time, Judy and I. We were hitting it off, and um, so we, we're sparking and courting, as they say. And so we made tea, and she had some, she was a baker, so she had brought in some interesting things that she had baked with her. And so we brought out a little table, and Sensei had just been sitting there like glowing, and we put a little table next to him, and we pulled up two little folding chairs, and we had tea, right? And he said, "This is good tea," but he said, "Off by the road, there's a big chest. Did you see it walking in?" And we said, "Yes." He says, "Could you go up there and get that?" After we kind of finished that tea. So we said, "Sure." And we brought in his chest, and we said, "Sensei, we finished the room up for you." And so we walked in front of him with the chest, and took it in and sat it down, and he said, "Oh, this, so nice, bed, rug, table, chair. You did this for me. Thank you. You were good students." And so he then opened up his thing, and he had a cornucopia of herbs and teas and foods and about 4 robes, and that was about for clothes. He just had 4 robes, and he had a coat. He had 2 coats, and kind of a sweater, a hooded sweater. So, hey, Allie, sweet, how you doing? Hello. Did you get my emails? And again, anybody who wants to email the dudeawake42@gmail. Right. So there we were. I thought so. I put you around. So so he then goes, "Now this is a good tea, and I'll show you about tea." So he brought out he had another little box inside the big box just to make tea. He goes, "We will build a tea house, and I will teach you the tea ceremony." So he brings that to the kitchen, and then he shows us how to make tea. I mean, we made from Judy's stuff that she brought, and he said that's very nice. But then he had this block of black tea, and he took that and he made tea, the Japanese way, and that would take a whole show. And one day I'll go on about the tea ceremony, because we built a whole tea house. We built a hambu, and we built a bathhouse that summer. Well, that summerish, fallish winter into the spring. We were there about 8 months, and so he made that tea, and then he read our tea leaves, and that isn't really it. And I said, "So where'd you learn this?" And I'd been with the old crone by this time already, and he goes, "I learned this in Ireland." And he kind of winked at me. So that was that was the first day with Sensei. So by this time, we got there maybe 10 a.m. and like the time we had tea, and he brought out, this really beautiful, ornate China tea service, and after he showed us how to make tea, and he put it in the pot, and we went out and drank it, and had these little almond cookies that were very, very nice. And we drank that. Then he read our tea leaves, and then we had another round of tea. And by that time, it was like maybe 2:00, and these people started driving up in their own cars, right, and like parking on the front lawn. I mean, it's a farmhouse, but it was the front lawn, right? But and it's Vermont, so it's kind of everything's always moist, and so it's just no real appreciation. And I was going to get up and say, no, you should put, but since he kind of put his hand out like this, he goes, no, let's see what these people are like. I know what you two are like. First thing you did was clean up the house and made me a bedroom. And then he said, and made your love nest. We kind of looked at each other, and but we did. We were saying we're going to live up here, but we were thinking about we'll find another bed. We'll put it. And when he said love nest, it was like, okay, we've been ordained, and so anyway, so we basically. These people showed up, and they all had, I'm a doctor, I'm a surgeon, I'm a this, I'm a blah, 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 right? And so, they wanted to know the stuff. And he goes, well, let's have a cup of tea. Go in and get yourself a cup of tea. And, he had the first pot of tea, a big thing that was like for general consumption and not ceremonial tea that he made for us, right? So she got, and they were like, then they looked at us, can you get it for us? And Sensei put his hand out like, and we were like that. And he said, no, you go in and get it yourself. That's what this place is about. Get it for yourself. This is a community. There are no servants, and we're all equal. And then when he said we're all equal, especially the guy who was head, blah, 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 and a surgeon, he looked at me. I'm like, I'm equal to this guy? Nah, I'm way above him, right? Anyway, and there were 4 of them. There were 8 altogether, and the other 4 were open enough to not be as arrogant as those other 4 guys. And it just happened that the 4 folks who were, had credentials and representing hard work and achievement of, being head of something or other, but they didn't blow their horns about it, and they were women, not guys. They were women. So they were very respectful, whereas the guys were, Anyway, the guy who, wanted us to serve him, he says, well, there's nothing here for me to learn. So he got in his car and he took off. And Sensei didn't say anything about that. Like, oh, good riddance. No, he just said, okay, I'll go get your teas. And so I said, I'm going to get it for him. So I bought the thing and 3 cups, and I had my fingers in the cups. And I said, that cup's yours, that cup's yours, that's yours. And by that time, the other 4 ladies went in and helped me and brought out another tray of other stuff and their own cups. And they were going to bring out those guys' cups. I said, no. And I just stuck my 4 fingers in 4 cups. That's your cup, that's your cup, that's your cup. And started pouring it like sloppily, And so, and that's me. I'm a cheeky monkey. I am super respectful, but I'm a cheeky monkey. And those are characteristics that I have always been. My grandma, when I was 3 years old, she used to call me Wuzial, and her Sicilian Gaelic means little devil. And so, and my mom realized this and was somewhat, didn't get too upset by it. My dad, Colonel of the Air Force, but it was real easy when my dad was a total pushover. All I had to do, yes, sir, right away, sir. And then go up and do whatever heck I wanted. He never checked out. So, but within the week, those 4 guys were gone, and there was 5 women, me, Sensei, right? And it was a great little crew. And a couple weeks later, a few people started to stroll in who were the right people. And Sensei taught us, like I said, we built a tea house, we built a bathhouse, we built a Hamburg. That's like the school. And everything Sensei taught us were in little bits. So after 8 months, I learned a lot. Sensei turned me on to a bunch of people to go study with. And now this was in Putney, Vermont, but he was a Japanese Shinto priest. And he was a really interesting guy because his father was a Swiss diplomat during the Second World War, and he was in Japan. And he married a woman who was a Japanese, Shinto priestess, of whatever, however that fits in their dynamic. But she was, in a diplomatic form. She was a diplomat unto herself, and she was a linguist and knew a zillion languages. And so, out of that coupling of this Swiss French guy and this Japanese, intellect scholar, came my sensei, and they lived. Um, she came from the town of Hiroshima, and their temple was right in the middle of Hiroshima, right in the river. There's this bridge that goes across the river in Hiroshima, and she was there, and Sensei had been born, and I think he was 2 years old, and his father had to go because at a certain point, Switzerland, even though they were neutral, they called him back, and they wouldn't let him. No one kind of said, "Yes, you're married," and because she was a high-level person in that religion and in the government, she was okay to have that kid, and he could have a dual citizenship, Sensei. So he was our teacher, and he remembered when they dropped the bomb on Hiroshima, and they used the temple as ground zero, and the temple did not get touched. The atomic bomb was dropped right on them, and Hiroshima got flattened, but the temple, and they got as many people into their temple and along that bridge as they could, and those people did not get seriously hurt. Then they went out after everything cleared and picked up whoever survived and brought them back and nursed them. And that was, so Sensei, his mother was also a herbalist and a doctor. I mean, this lady his mother was like, well, like on the level of the old Japanese, right? And so, and she had studied in France and in England and in America, and she was truly something. So that was my teacher, her son was my teacher. So he was from Japan, but someone had donated, that his temple that, again, in Hiroshima, wanted to start sending people out into the rest of the world. This was 1973, I guess. And someone had donated this farm that had been used in 10, 15 years, and he just showed up first and sat on the porch until we showed up. And Judy and I were the first to show up, and we cleaned the place up. Yes, a temple. Yeah, that's it, exactly. That's their church, temple, a Shinto temple. And in Putney, the thing, I bet you that place is, if you were to like Google Shinto temple, school, healing, Putney, Vermont, I bet you that comes up. And so, let's see right now. Let's see what Google has to say. So, Ali, I sent you 2 emails, and did you get my WhatsApp? I doubt you were out walking, right? So you rang, so I think we're all hooked up there. Come on. Okay. Shinto Temple Healing Center in Putney, Vermont.
Listings for Temple Healing Center around Putney. Here they are. If you're visiting due to COVID-19, give your healthcare provider a call before you go.
Come on. Then it goes away. Okay. Open up won't let it get bigger. Might get bigger. Yep, there it is. West Brattleboro, where's Putney? I think it's this one off of Putney Energy Healing. Temple Plumbing and Heating, Inc. I don't think that's it. But the Putney Energy Healing, I think that's the place. See, it's still there. It's right off of Route 5. Yep, I think that's it. Anyway, so there we were. And it was quite an extraordinary experience. Judy and I stayed solid buddies for another 10 years until she kind of moved out of New York. And I think her father got sick and she went back to, Massachusetts and took care of him. But anyway, she was quite an amazing woman. And she started a thing called Black Chrome. And it was one of, at the time in New York in the latter middle 70s, early 80s, it was the largest herbal, wholesaler in the United States, right? And some people bought her out, gave her a nice check. That was another reason she left New York. And it became Whole Foods. So what she was the beginning of Whole Foods, right? But she was all about herbs and healing, and she had a healing center. And we had a healing. I taught at the Swiss Institute of Massage on 10th Street, and I was their alternative teacher. That was my department, alternative medicine. And Judy was teaching there, and a few other friends I had were teaching there. And the guy who started the Whole Life Expo was teaching there. We were all buds. We were all a cadre. And that, the Whole Life Expo was just a zine that we used to do out of his, kitchen. And then it became a big thing. And then it became, the alternative life, all of that new age stuff, which was already there. I mean, I was already part of the Theosophical Society. We all would go up to, and I kind of, when I was in Putney, Vermont, I bumped into this person who came to visit us, because a lot of people came to visit us. And this lady was from, the Theosophical Society. So, we're over in upstate New York, just really that away. And, so she stayed with us for a few days. And when we decided to take a road trip, we went with her over there, and I met the lady. I forget what her name was, but she was like Madame Blavatsky's girlfriend when she was a teen, like early 19, 20 years old. Now she's running the Theosophical Society, and their garden was like, they had tomatoes, like, and there's, energy work was pretty off the hook. And once they learned I was an electrician and I could fix things, that's when I became part of the Theosophical Society. This place was called, what was it called? Pumpkin Hollow. Let's see. Would you please send me an email with your phone number? Yep. That sounds good. So Val, did you sent me you sent me your phone number too, right? And I tried to call you, and you hadn't set up your thing, but I will go into my emails and send you my phone number, because you're in America, right? If you're in America, you can call me up, and if not, we can you can use WhatsApp, because others have done that and they're hooked up and we're all ready to go. So these amazing stories are just come from, yep. Good. So I will do that before I leave here. After I finish the show, I will, do that. So that whole amazing thing of being with Sensei for 8 months, and we built a school. Like, we built 3 buildings, and got lots of people to come, and it was just off the backs of 8 people and Sensei, and everything was a lesson. I mean, everything. I mean, cooking, cleaning was all a lesson. And he wasn't there going, I'm teaching you how to know. He taught us how to get into state and how to be conscious, aware of every move we made. Because when we were sweeping, when we were digging a hole, when we were doing gardening, I was up on a ladder fixing something. I was in state, and I was doing Tai Chi. Everything I did was an exercise. I was moving my energy. And when I moved my energy, I was healing myself, everyone around me, and it made everything I did really, 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 really well. Everything, right? And so I don't claim to be an expert on anything. It's just that when I do something, I do it in a state of conscious awareness. So I do it well. And that's usually way ahead of, anybody else. So that's kind of how it works. So that's a story about little things. And so at the same time, I was still, the dude in New York, and people go, where, and that's what I would do. I would be in New York for a year or so and do all these projects and all these things. And I'd be humming along and they'd be going, oh, good, my shows. And I would take a road trip, right? And I'd be away because that's how I could stand New York. I would do it for a year or two and then go to Australia for 3 years. Do it for a year or two, live in Europe for a year or two. Do it, or go to, New Mexico, or I lived in other places. St. Louis, went to the Art Institute nearby there. So it was, that's how I lived my life. That's why I had so many different lives and so many different adventures and had a great time doing it. Living like a millionaire without having to be one, right? So that was the storyline. And what time is it now? Oh, it's 1:30. So I think everyone showed up. Tomorrow, maybe I'll try and so I started, it's now an hour and 1 minute and 11 seconds. I love it when that happens. I will try, and I have to go get my car fixed. And so I will probably have that, by 10:30, somewhere between 10 and 11. I will try and get to a place where my car is getting fixed to go online and tell you some more stories. Tomorrow I'll tell you a story about Una Bear Gallery, the birth of Una Bear. And I'm going to go offline here at 11111. So I got about 6 minutes to tell you this story. So when I came back from Putney, I was in, I'm staying at a friend of mine's, Soho, and I fixed virtually every factory in Soho, right, when there were still factories there. So they were starting to thin out, and the artists were, being replaced by lawyers buying lofts. And so this one super who had all these buildings he was taking care of, and he had smashed through in the basements, and he had this gigantic, gambling, prostitution, food, music, amazing, club. And all the workers went there, after work, they went down there. And so he was spending his time doing that. So I came back, he goes, where'd you go? And I said, I was working at the VA, and I was working and now I'm going to go back to the VA. He goes, listen, I need you to fix things again. And he takes me up to this loft and says, you can live here as long as you want. As long as I'm here, you can stay here. This gigantic 7,000 square foot loft on top of this building on Worcester Street. And it had amazing sun, had this big wall of glass where the sun came in because the top of the building, and all these big skylights. And it was a total mess. But it had running water, it kind of had heat, and it had no electricity, but it had a ton of DC, because this is one of those buildings that has with DC in. And it was a wooden box. They filled it in with pitch so you couldn't get at the copper. But you could see where those gigantic wires were. And I had my little megger so I could buzz things out. Anyway, so I said, sure. So, I figured out which was positive and which was negative. I put in two big spikes I had welded a welding wire onto, and then put it into a rectifier with a circuit breaker box on it. And, had AC current, right? And so I cleaned up the place. I got the bathroom to work. I kind of took a corner where the most light was, two big, skylights and a whole wall of glass. And that's where the plumbing was. So I made a kitchen and a toilet and a bathtub, shower. And there was gas. There was a gas line there, no meter, but a gas line that worked. So I kind of, got off on the friends who were HVAC guys, and they were pulling out a unit. It still worked, but they were putting in a newer one. And I got some of that stuff from them and brought it up the elevator, hooked it all up, had AC and heat was perfect. And a nice, maybe 1,000 square foot cubicle of this 7,000 square feet. That was great. And so there, I was living there, and I went and started doing electric work and doing other things for other people and getting, doing shows and all kinds of stuff. And I bumped into this guy. He's wearing a suit. And he had really long hair, like down to his butt. And that was Phil. And I was, and he was looking at stuff, and he goes, and we started talking, and I said, "So where you live?" He said, "Nowhere now. And I'm an artist, I went, and he was one of the guys who started SNCC in California. And he's a white boy, and he had a totally white girlfriend. Anyway, so Phil and Jane Baer, really, really from Minnesota. As both their parents were Lutheran ministers, but they went to Berkeley and just woo. And so these kids were like off the hook and great artists. And so I let them sleep. I made them another little cubicle on that wall, and we were just having a grand time. And then one day, Phil got himself a job because when he went to Berkeley, he studied to be an economist, and he ended up working for the IRS with hair down to his butt, but always wearing a suit. And so he said, "I found this great space. Come and take a look at it." We looked at it. It's right on the corner of Broome and West Broadway in Soho. And it was big, gigantic windows, an amazing basement with the whole sidewalk was cast iron with these little glass things so the sunlight would go through the sidewalk. And it was amazing, right? And it was like a 12,000 square foot space, 30-foot ceilings, and the windows were like floor to the ceiling facing West Broadway. And West Broadway is a big, wide avenue, so a ton of light. So he said, and it's only $300, and all I need is 1,000 to I don't have that. But I said, not a problem. Who's the guy who owns this place? So the guy who owned it had a store on Canal Street, plastic store. And we went over to him. I said, "Hi there. I don't know, here, if you need any references, here's Mike Stool, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. I've heard of you. You're that artist electrician guy who does all this crazy stuff." I go, "That's me." I said, "So you own that building, don't you?" I said, "Well, I went in and looked at it. It's a mess, right? And that's why you can't rent it out, right? The elevator doesn't work. The standpipe system doesn't work. Nothing works, right? It's a great building, great location, but nothing works. How about I fix everything so you could start renting this stuff out, and you let us live there 5 years, no rent?" He goes, "Good idea." So that's what happened. We moved in. We didn't have to pay rent. I fixed everything. I brought in a new service in the building. It's like $40 grand right off the bat. Fixed everything, and because I was, was well related to all the building departments, got them all. "Oh yeah, this worked. Oh, you did that. Good. You signed off." So the guy signed it up. He could then insure the building, right? Then he could get people moving. So that guy was my best friend. He owned the plastic store on Canal Street. He was a great guy. Right? So that was Winnebago, and we had shows and parties, and I wish I could remember the guy's name who owned 420. He was the first. He had a place on 54th Street. He was the first big gallery guy to come down to Soho, and he realized he was a visionary. He realized he was going to make a lot of money. Hello, Sandra. Good to see you. And there's Val and Allie and Ellie and who else? We got quite the cadre here. Michelle. Yep. So it's all good to see everybody. So tomorrow I'm going to tell you the story of Phil and Jane Baer and Una. You like this story. And these are all about, all the stories I told you, all about little things that change the world. Right? So we still got 3 minutes, so let's breathe in deep. Conscious intent I am, conscious intent I am, conscious intent I am. Oh. Do that for 5 minutes. Then go conscious aware I am, conscious aware I am, conscious aware I am. Oh. And do that for 5 minutes. And do that 3 or 4 times a day. And you don't have to do them right after each other, but conscious intent thing, when you have something intent, that's where you plug that in. Awareness, when you want to know what's going on inside yourself, you want to be self-aware, you want to be self-reflective, conscious, aware, I am. Oh, right. So, Allie, when I get off, I'm going to try and WhatsApp with you. And Val, I'll call you like within 15, 20 minutes because I think I got your phone number here. And we'll go from there. Okay? And if I can't find your phone number, I will email you mine. Right? And anybody else who wants to talk to me, go to the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail, and say hello to each other on email. And if you're in America, I'll give you my phone number, and you can we can talk. And if you're not in America, you can get on WhatsApp. I will get a hold of you. Okay, here we go. Coming up on 111. So I love you guys. I'll try and see you tomorrow or Friday, or maybe both days. I'm just running into being able to do this, so I'll do that. And if I go to Virginia and stay with John, I'll do a lot of it, right? Okay. Love you guys.